thought that. What happened to all the
That's
dogs
disgusting.
and potatoes thing?
Yeah, Hart thought that.
He told.
St. Louis, not St. Louis, Branson.
My room is a lethal autonomous weapon.
Wait, where's Tessa?
Dad.
Let's go.
Branson.
Let's all laugh at people who are gone, so that way when they watch the video, they'll know we hate them.
Quentin, I hate you. I love you.
Okay, let's seriously, let's get this done.
Alright.
I really want to go home.
And that's what I live by.
Oh no, so like everyone, this is Elijah. He's going to be joining LD, so that's exciting.
Hi, Elijah.
Like Hart said, don't worry about like how we're gonna make these arguments or how you debate. Just make sure that like we can understand what like the topic is asking. So as always, these are kind of also like I put on this Christmas music in the background. Is this distracting people?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, I'll turn it off.
You know what? You should put on All I Want for Christmas. That's the better one.
Okay. So we're gonna like go through these 4 basic steps as always. So let's move right on to defining the terms. Most of you have probably already like looked into this and also we've used a lot of terms before. But you know, going term by term, we have states, which a lot of people obviously like get confused right off the bat because living in America, whenever you hear the word states, you think of like Missouri. But that's not what they're talking about, obviously. They basically just mean like countries. So like the United States is a state. So the United Kingdom's a state or whatever.
It's like the
We're only
first topic.
called states because we used to have a confederal government.
Not the
and
first topic.
confederal government was basically a loose
First topic
term
is
for
compulsory
different
voting.
sovereign bodies.
I thought that was states outside
The
the
sovereign
culture.
body is a state. That's why we have states.
What's
I
it?
have a
don't know.
better definition for lethal autonomous weapons.
Okay, well, we can get to there when we get there.
Okay.
That's just my self-definition.
I have a
Our next one is ought. Once again, this is one that we've all used before because this was in this topic.
It's been in
Yeah.
all the topics.
Has it? I don't know. Sometimes they don't have one, but generally it has ought in the topic, and it literally just means like a moral obligation, something that we should do.
Tell us it one more time.
What?
What does ought mean?
Are you being serious?
I got it from my
I think
secret
I'm being
Santa.
serious.
I don't think so, but I don't know. If you guys are like don't understand something, I gotta make sure you do.
Someone just walked by.
Um,
It's like someone I know.
So it may seem stupid to define the word ban, and it is, and we shouldn't have to do it. But God, I hate debaters in Missouri, and I can already see right now that someone's gonna be like, the word ban actually just like implies that we ban it for citizens, so you can't personally own a armed drone, but the government can. And it's, I already see it.
Is that Andrew?
Oh my God, it's Andrew.
It is Andrew.
Hold up, hit him with the button.
Can I be down?
That's exciting.
Can I go home?
Yeah, seriously, calm down though. We love Andrew, but
I'm good moves, Daddy. I thought that was
he'll come in here.
No, Alright. Okay, so, but in the same way that some people may think you will ban it for citizens only, do you think some people are going to define autonomous as automatic?
Well, that's just blatantly wrong.
they're stupid.
If they do, they're just.
The difference here is that technically defining ban that way is correct. Like, if citizens aren't legally allowed to own guns, not guns, the lethal autonomous weapons, that is technically banning it.
But it says states ought to ban, so the sovereign
Yeah, the state banned
countries-
it.
For citizens.
So, but that's objectively a bad argument. I just want to call attention to it because if one of you like debate it, I want you to be aware that this is a thing that I guarantee someone's gonna do. Because like we did a topic similar to this, where it was states ought to eliminate their nuclear arsenals, and then a bunch of idiots were like, oh, states only implies 2, and then like Micronesia and Australia or whatever. And so these stupid definition debates are going to happen. You should not do them yourself, but you should be aware of them. So anyway, moving on to the only term that should actually be important, lethal autonomous weapons. And this obviously is like, you don't want to define these words separately, you want to put them all together. This is what I put just like as my base research was just like, basically equipment that can like kill you without actual interaction from humans. So like guns that can sense movement and shoot based off that. Or Nate's been talking to me about landmines. I guess that technically fits it. That's definitely not what I thought about, but
Well, I got it because I talked to an ex-military.
no, that's fair. You're technically right. It didn't come to my mind.
That's like the only type of lethal autonomous weapon that we have.
That is currently being used.
No.
No.
Good
I told you on the Korean border, dude.
No, actually, the Korean border, someone has to approve that firing. It does most of the shooting on its own. The research I have shown is that someone technically does have to hit yes, you can fire at this person.
But it's still technically autonomous.
It's still
It
targeting
doesn't
and
involve a
engaging.
human aiding.
Without,
Have you guys
but
seen this
it
project,
can't
Dead
kill them
Man's
without
Hand?
human interaction. The human has to approve the fire.
Alright, anyway.
Therefore,
Even then, I would argue that we have the technology in order to do this. So it's like
Yeah, but
to get hyper specific on landmines is going to completely derail the debate. Gage said that he had something he would like to add, a nice definition.
So it goes along with pretty much what Quentin said, but it's from Future Life, from this year. It's Future Life in 2020. They said lethal autonomous weapons, or AWS, are weapon systems that can identify, select, and engage a target without meaningful human control.
So
Yeah, that's a good.
That's
a better definition.
and see that one would actually, I would argue,
You can argue a lot of weapons.
get rid of landmines because landmines don't really like target and engage people. They just kind of blow
You
up.
step on it, and
you step on it and it targets you.
under that
I can-
definition, a landmine wouldn't be an autonomous weapon because it's not detecting. I mean, it's not detecting specific people.
And it has
It's
meaningful
just
human
people.
control. You have to set the landmine.
In
A
that-
human
in
has
that
to
case,
set
you have
the
to set
You
landmine.
have to set up a
turret.
gun.
Oh
like-
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that case, you still have to set up a turret.
set up
Hey,
No,
wait,
it's
no,
not-
calm
it's a
down, calm
debate.
down. One person talk at a time, dude. This is not a hard concept. We are high schoolers.
Are we now?
Anyway, Gage, where were you going with that?
Okay, so like I said, where you guys were saying where you have to set up a gun. Once you set up a full an autonomous gun, you don't have to have any more control. And same with a landmine, but with a landmine, it's a one-time thing. It blows up, and that's it. There's no meaningful human control. With other things, there is a sort of, there's maintenance that has to be done on weaponry like that. There's modifications, and that's a meaningful human control.
I would agree with Gage in to some respect, but also with Nate, because what is going to qualify as a lethal autonomous weapon is going to come down entirely on how you define it, which I hate.
How do you make a landmine?
I honestly don't know.
Bomb, pin,
it's-
put pin in bomb. You
Okay,
set
so
bomb,
then-
comes out.
Quentin.
You have a detonator, which is about an eighth stick of dynamite. So, like, if you use in the 90s, you could buy M80s, which was pretty much a blasting fuse, and it has some sort of plastic explosive wrapped around this fuse with a case that directs the explosion up, so you get more force. So for people landmines, they're a little smaller, and they're meant to blow your leg off.
But if you step on a tank landmine,
Tank landmines shouldn't be set off by people walking on them. They're designed so they only go off if a vehicle goes over them. They're supposed to disable vehicles. So if you wanted to use a landmine, you're going to have to argue whether or not
Really bad.
your landmines are designed to kill people versus incapacitate people.
Okay. Nate?
So if the weapon is designed merely to maim, it would not fall under this definition.
Yeah. I would say that's pretty, resolute, unless you could make, a case that it's well, it could, because then it's it's still lethal.
It's just not the
But it's
bullet
only
kills
for
with
the
the
sun
bleeding out.
degree, though.
But it's
not
also
like-
about identifying, selecting, and then engaging.
Tyler,
That
what were
too.
you trying
Yeah.
to bring up a little bit ago?
What?
Definition debate.
Oh,
Have
Dead
you guys
Man's
heard
Hand.
about Dead Man's
Dead
something?
Man's Hand. So it's a Russian project. They have nuclear missiles that just chill.
Dead
And-
hand. That's what it is. It's called dead hand.
Dead Man's Hand. And when they detect no longer detect the signal of that they send, these nuclear missiles can autonomously launch, and these things are crazy because they actually chill in the ocean. They'll come out, go into orbit, and then fall into everywhere.
The U.S.
Yeah.
Mostly the U.S. does.
It's a system for if Russia gets nuclear attacks, then they can defend against it. Well, defend. So obviously they're not stopping the nuclear attacks. They're just gonna retaliate.
Since we know about it, can't we just if we do get into that problem where we have to take care of such thing as that, wouldn't we just eliminate the bomb? Because it's in the ocean.
Well, the way that they talk
Well-
about fixing that is they detonate it in orbit. And the hope
Yeah.
is that the fallout is entirely less severe because the area that it's spreading out is much greater. So the levels of radiation and the fallout from that bomb is not going to kill as many people. You're going to deal more with radiation poisoning versus actual detonation.
That's
It doesn't
why-
really matter. The dead hand argument is okay, and we can talk about that as an example of a lethal autonomous weapon, but the way that states are going to respond to dead hand doesn't really fall within the topic. Because, no matter what side you're arguing, you can't argue how the United States is going to respond to that. And additionally, dead hand is largely like, it could be real, but it also could not be because Russia is kind of finicky about that.
It's not topical.
They really don't like say exactly what is happening. Like they kind of go back and forth, and then like even the things they do say, it's like, well, maybe they're just trying to scare the United States, like they did during the Cold War. It's like I don't know. So
We're not scared.
Whitman.
So, and I'm sorry if you already talked about this before I was in here or another day, but my question is, so are they going to consider Predator drones like unmanned remote control aircraft? Does that fall into this category or not at all?
I don't think so because it requires human
Yeah, they're
interaction.
controlled by
Okay,
humans.
so my thought is just playing devil's advocate. If your competitors, if your opponents bring that up, you might need to be prepared to be like, no, that's not.
Yeah, that's actually one of the
That's
arguments.
incorrect.
Judge, my opponent
will
did
go
that's-
down to the fact of what is autonomous weapons.
What?
Most of the arguments that I'm pretty sure that'll be brought up are what are autonomous weapons.
I mean, I think largely what the affirmative arguments are going to be about isn't going to be about the current state of lethal autonomous weapons, because currently it's not doing a whole lot, but it's about where technology is going to go. So, like, sure, drones aren't autonomous right now, but,
They can't
here,
do
let's get to
anything.
background
Well, and I
information.
guess my point is that, like, I remember, like, reading or hearing this whole big piece on this topic, and someone who basically quit his job controlling these unmanned remote controlled aircraft, because his argument was it basically felt like a game. Like, there was no human element. Although he was doing it, it wasn't real. Like, you know, he was like...
Yeah, that's an argument that actually we have
Yeah.
on here.
Okay, awesome.
Actually,
Hold up. First, I want to take note while we're talking about like what lethal autonomous weapons are. Like I said, there's not a whole lot right now. So just arguing what like is currently happening in the world, I don't think is going to be particularly like persuasive. But if you look at this, we have people who are opposed to a ban and countries that support a ban on lethal autonomous weapons. And man, that's a lot of important countries that want lethal autonomous weapons.
Yeah, Russia and us. Woohoo.
Yeah, so like there were others that didn't support it, but they were all like Djibouti and stuff, like no countries no one cares about. Sorry, Djibouti.
Jerk,
Wow, I
Quentin.
gotta be a Djibouti hater.
But so it's like okay, so
Yeah.
technology is gonna like clearly continue moving forward, and it's like lethal autonomous drones probably aren't that far out of the question. Yeah, Addison.
So like, why do already like the biggest military powers want like more?
Probably
Another one.
because
Less
like
boots on the ground.
Yeah.
that's part of it. But also, I think beyond that, they're afraid that other countries aren't going to adhere to a ban, so then they're going to be behind, which is definitely like big for the United States and Russia. Like, that's still like a fallout of the Cold War is that they are constantly in fear of being behind like the other global superpowers.
And for some countries, it could be about size of their military. Like Israel is a somewhat smaller nation surrounded by what they consider to be enemies. Their army is, in that case, without assistance, outmanned, outgunned. So if they build autonomous weapons that they don't have to worry about getting killed because it's just a broken machine. It's not an actual life being lost.
Yeah, I think that could be argued on the affirmative or negative side. I think you could say that lethal autonomous weapons like help little countries, and also that it completely screws them over. It all just depends on how you argue it. But we already kind of talked about most of this stuff. Does anybody have like any questions or things they'd like to bring up before we get into the actual arguments? Because there's been a lot of ideas going around, and I want to make sure we clarify any lingering questions.
Oh,
Yeah, Addison.
so I've been looking at some of the like cards or whatever,
Mhm.
and they talk about like humanitarian benefits, and I still don't get what they.
We'll move on to the negative arguments and we'll see what they say there. And if that still doesn't answer your question, we'll look at that because I'm not quite sure what you're talking about.
Could be a.
And it sounds kind of ugly.
I think it could be similar to what we talked at lunch the other day, Quentin.
At lunch.
We were in line. We were talking about.
Oh, yes. Yeah, okay, actually, I can see that. I don't know. We'll figure out for sure.
I haven't really done any research. I'm just listening to y'all, but are they really expensive? They
I
can't be
would-
made commercial. Right?
I actually haven't looked into that, but I would assume not.
You would think they'd be more, but it's only like, and it's gonna sound like a lot. I think they said the card that I have in my one of my cases states that it's only 1% of the GDP.
For a single weapon?
Huh?
For a single weapon or a batch?
For like a set of them.
Okay.
That's not really a
That's
lot.
not a lot.
We spend like what 60% of the GDP on military. 80. It's something crazy like that.
Yeah.
It's definitely over 50.
So my question is that does that 1% fall within what we spend for the army, or is it just like an extra 1%?
Well, the army is a specific branch, military.
It would likely be that's
military,
like.
excuse me.
I get what you're saying. I would assume that it's like we'd probably pull funds from other things. Like, so for instance, if we have lethal autonomous weapons, we probably don't need as many like soldiers or like as big of an armed forces. So then like we don't have to pay those people.
But then they'll be losing jobs.
Federal jobs guarantee solves.
Perfect.
I'm sad that made everyone laugh. We're all kind of losers.
Not everyone laughed.
I'm gonna come back to
Okay,
that.
okay, Samar.
Okay.
Let's all exclude Samarth from
Get
now
off
on.
ours.
All right, let's just move on to the arguments.
Yeah. Any other last questions?
Be nice.
Okay, cool. So this is something that I put just because like I thought that all the drones are not drones, like all the lethal autonomous weapons were just gonna be like turrets. But like literally look at that. That's terrifying.
It looks so cute.
Imagine that thing running at you with two fully armed like machine guns.
It's going like 40 miles per hour.
You're done. That's when
Okay.
you hop on its
If
back.
I do the app and I just walk up and I show them that vine where it's like they like kick the robot over and like we'll rise up. I think they'll like give it to me.
It's like,
Unfortunately, I don't think video
Yeah, probably.
evidence getting
It's not
is
the thing.
actionable.
Yeah, where's the robot uprising app?
There we go.
Nick.
So, like, with going off what she said with the robot thing,
Mhm.
with the robots that we're currently developing that aren't used for military use, I think that you could bring up an argument to where you can say that they could be adapted for military use, like the ones that they're starting to try to use in factories where they move the boxes and stuff from those videos.
I've seen
Are we
arguments
ta-
for
are
that.
we
Is
talking
that
Yeah,
about
but
current
that's not
autonomous
autonomous.
weapons? Like,
Technically,
are we gonna start talking about futuristic autonomous weapons?
No, they're still
Smart,
they're
we
still
didn't talk about
controlled.
that.
There's still some form
There's
of
not many
controlling
current
by a
autonomous weapons. You know that, right?
Yeah, so that's why I was saying
There's one
before.
that
Let's
looks
just
like-
crash
Lie
it.
down, lie it down. That's why I was saying before. There's not a whole lot of current lethal autonomous weapons.
I don't want
It's really kind of like, So, really the only option that you're gonna have probably is to talk about like futuristic weapons and be like, hey, here's where technology is going. Because like bans don't just ban things in the world right now. If we ban lethal autonomous weapons, then that'll stop all research about it. Which is actually an okay argument, because you could be like, it's critical that we do it now because like you're not going to be able to do it later. It's the same reason why we can't like ban nuclear weapons now. Like maybe if we would have done it in like the 40s, then it would have been fine.
No, we're the ones that dropped the bomb.
I know. I didn't mean we specifically. But it's
yeah,
like
we're us.
it's simply unfeasible to do it now. Like nuclear weapons, you can't uninvent the bomb. Addison.
Of course you can.
me.
Oh,
Yeah, your
Okay.
name is Addison.
I wasn't sure if he said Addison or something else. I don't know. Anyway, so there's this one thing. When I was looking up lethal autonomous weapons and stuff, there's this one that Google helped the Pentagon build.
Oh god, no.
That's scary.
And I think they like dropped out of it because like their employees went on strike or something. But it was called
They
Project
formed
Maven.
a unit.
Project what?
Maven or something.
Did you guys see the article about
I haven't
outer
seen that.
space
I'll look at
aliens and Israel claiming?
Not. Very good.
So funny.
All right. Any other last minute questions?
Uh-oh.
Stupid.
Okay. Let's finally move on to actual arguments. I'm just gonna like go through and kind of like explain the base ideas as usual, and you guys can like provide additional ideas or ask questions or any of those good things. We love interaction. So the first argument is like escalation, which kind of has these like two subpoints that go with it. So we'll get to those in a minute. But this is kind of going hand in hand with like what Mrs. Whitman was talking about with it's like dehumanizing, which is also something that we talk about down here. But it's like whenever there's lethal autonomous weapons, things are a lot more likely to get out of hand really quickly because like nothing really seems to matter anymore. Like it's a big thing right now to go to war. Like if Congress passed a declaration of war, people are going to get upset. Just like they did whenever we went to like Iraq. People got upset. So it's like a big deal. But it's like, if we're just like, no, we're just gonna send some drones over there, like, people aren't gonna care, which makes it a lot easier for conflicts to escalate, because, like, who cares if we send the drones over? Why not? And then wars are going to happen a lot more often.
What's it called? Oh, the draft.
So if we
Actually,
do,
it's called selective service now.
so if we do end up sending autonomous drones over there
Yeah.
to kill people,
Isn't it
or
like-
over anywhere
Still
to
make
kill
them, like,
people,
sign up,
can't
don't
they
have to do it.
find a
Yeah,
way
when a male
to
turns
take
18,
care of
he has to
them?
sign up for selective service.
What do you mean, like,
So it
like
can
To
destroy
take
the
care of the
drones.
drones, yeah. Like there's gotta be a way.
Well, yeah, but it's
to
gonna,
expand
so we're just gonna have drone warfare, because like other countries are gonna have the drones too. It's not just gonna be one. So then it's just gonna be they're all killing each other, and it's like war is still bad. Like even if
Just because I don't
people
like
aren't
them.
dying as much, and then also like there's still going to be casualties of war regardless once we get there, because even if we're not personally sending people over, like those drones are going to kill someone.
They're not just attacking other drones.
Yeah, but
Not yet.
Not yet.
that's what I'm saying. Some of it will be drones, but like people are still going to die. Like no matter what like the basis of your war is, like
Why would a
I mean
country
we have drone
have
strikes
drones?
now.
Why would a country have drones specifically target other drones when it'll cause more panic when they start killing actual people?
Yeah, so like I think definitely like the like fact that it's not humans at first is going to make it a lot easier to get the war started, but don't kid yourself, people will die. So
That kind of
yeah, Tyler.
Out of curiosity, can we make the argument that like that this defeats the purpose of war? Because if you have autonomous machines versus autonomous machines, which I know you guys have touched on this, and they're just sitting there fighting each other, I mean, eventually it might come to people, but doesn't it kind of like,
I mean,
don't know, it feels
purpose-
pointless at that point? Because if you're trying to harm the other country, and you harm it by killing assets, which should be the citizens.
Are you saying
Well,
that like if we send drones and someone else sends drones at our drones, it's just gonna cancel out?
It's just gonna like, yeah, like
The
there's
purpose-
no point in
the
war.
purpose of
there's
war
still
is
there's still be
let me answer it. The purpose of war is to like resolve conflicts generally through violent means. Not generally.
Definitely through violence.
Definitely through
Yeah.
violent means. And it's like destroying property is still like a violent mean. And like drone warfare is still warfare. And like if we destroy enough drones, countries just can't produce those things forever. So either A, yeah, they could send out humans, or they're just gonna be like, we are outgunned, and then they're gonna come to some form of like a resolution. But it's like you could make that same argument for like a normal war, because like a lot of countries don't legitimately care about like their troops. It's like, so what? But like war has to end eventually, so
Has to.
If you're better troops, you get some-
I mean, yeah, you say that as a joke, but like how long have we been in the Middle East? Since 2002.
That is
That's
how-
not good. That war's
Since
older.
Operation Desert Storm.
That war is older than me.
older than.
So anyway, that's like the basic escalation argument. Kind of going with that is like a way that we can get to escalation is through miscalculation. I feel like the reason this argument might be big is just because people are familiar with it, because
We had it last year.
in a topic last year, the nuclear weapons one we were just talking about, miscalculation was a beautiful argument.
Did you run it?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, that was the topic we did at GDS, and that's what everyone used. It was amazing because it's literally just like the weapons think that like something is happening, like it's being attacked, or like this is someone that they need to kill, and then they kill them, and then things get bad. Because obviously, whenever like there is an attack on someone, that is immediately going to lead to super high aggressions. I.e., in January when the Iranian general Soleimani, I believe that was his name, he got killed. Like everyone was afraid that it was going to go to war, and like yeah, some people exaggerated it, but like tensions did get really bad for a while, because like that's just what happens whenever like you have an attack on another country. So it's like you can argue whether or not that's justified in any situation, but if like it's a miscalculated attack, then very clearly it's probably not justified. And it's like you're just going to lead to war because the weapon thought that it needed to like go do this drone strike. I don't know.
I guess.
Like, I don't think this one's quite as strong here, because for like the nuclear weapons one, it was literally like, hey, we have all these examples of like when nuclear war almost happened because of miscalculation. That's not good.
I think you could still make a good argument.
I think it's okay, but I think there are better arguments to run here.
Which one's the best one? We can just talk about that one.
It's
Arms race.
Expensive.
I really like the where am I going with this? The like civilian deaths one, but we'll get there in a second. And then just going like to nuclear weapons, this just goes with escalation because the argument is just like, oh, if we have war, it'll turn to nuclear war, everyone dies.
Then we could just, same defense from nuclear.
Honestly,
nuclear
any topic
Yeah.
you can link it to nuke war.
I'm not
Policy,
an
it
LD.
always hits a nuke
Oh
war.
no, if you try hard enough. Hart's done it multiple times.
With the federal jobs guarantee?
He did do it.
No, my
Shots,
links
How
to
do
nuke war. I hate Hart.
How?
That's
My
so
question
funny.
is how?
The thing is, in
There's-
policy, it always ends a nuke war.
Yeah. All right. Seriously, let's get moving though, because we're kind of going slow. So the next one is just the arms race, which this one's like pretty simple. It's like what we were talking about with like United States and Russia not wanting to be behind. If we don't ban lethal autonomous weapons, then it's just going to lead to everyone like now racing to be the first one to get lethal autonomous weapons. That's not really good.
I think arms
Get
race is a bit more
triggered.
non-unique though,
Lethal
because
autonomous weapons.
it happens with every new form of weaponry.
Yeah, but it's like if you can eliminate one of those forms, it's still like better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Nate, God.
Like you gotta take some strides. I don't super love the arms race argument, but like a lot of people talk about it. Josh.
So I know how you mentioned that we can't like ban nuclear weapons because the U.S. specifically has already used them. So it wouldn't the lethal autonomous weapons wouldn't really be a problem unless they've already been used.
Well, so like my basic point there was like, yeah, we technically could ban them, but it's really hard to because like there's like 9 countries that already have them. So then it's like, well, how do we ensure that they don't like make more? There's like a lot of issues that go into it, and it's a lot easier to do it if we do it right now before countries have it, because then we can also make sure that it's like they don't have the technology to do it, because like that's the other thing. Making nuclear weapons for countries, if they can get the resources, isn't really hard right now because they know how to do it. But they don't know how to make lethal autonomous weapons. So if we were to ban it right now, then they would have to figure it out themselves without help from other countries. And that's the whole idea, is that it's like the faster we do it, the easier it is to enforce.
That arms race argument has a workability issue and it hurts me.
What do you like? Explain.
So like, kind of like what Nate said, like even if we take away just the the lethal autonomous weapons, we're still gonna be developing more weapons. So even though you're mitigating one problem, more problems are gonna rise from that. We might see an increase in nuclear weapons. Like, it kind of seems like that would fall.
I would my impact there would be like lethal autonomous weapons are the most dangerous weapon that we can have that people are actually going to use. Because then you could be like, well, weapons of mass destruction, but I'd be like, okay, so 0.21 time in the past like 70 years where we've used a weapon of mass destruction.
Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
That was 80 years ago.
Dang it!
That's by 10 gauge.
So I'd be like, yeah, arms race is going to happen, but it's probably better that we have
I have a question.
That
more
we
guns
stalemate that.
instead
Wasn't
of
there like a whole thing where
lethal
Obama
autonomous
bombed
weapons.
Iraq or something?
Oh yeah,
What?
Was that Obama or was that?
That was Obama.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Like, wasn't there that whole thing?
Yeah,
like when
peaceful laws of
Obama bombed
democracy.
Iraq?
I mean, it wasn't exclusively Obama, it was also Trump, but yes,
Yeah.
America does a lot
I
of
don't know, I
drone
just know
strikes.
like they always link it back to Obama.
Yeah, it's because
Everyone's
it's,
38 years in office, he did do a lot of it, but
He-
so has Trump. So
So has every other president.
but yes, the point is that, well, drone strikes like, Obama's presidency was the first time when it was really big, because like we have the technology.
We have the technology, so we
But yeah, like drone strikes have become very big in recent years, which is why it's there.
Kind of weak.
Yeah. So next, moving on to like this more civilian deaths and abuse argument. This is just basically being like, people are going to misuse lethal autonomous weapons. It's just going to result, because like the whole idea behind it is like, oh, well, if we have them, then like soldiers don't have to die because we can just like send drones. But it's like it's going to cause a lot more innocent deaths because if you didn't know, killing civilians is a war crime. So that's not good. We probably shouldn't be doing that.
Wait, hold on. What if you accidentally shoot one?
What if you accidentally shoot someone in America?
That's illegal.
Exactly.
Actually,
Accidentally take out
it's direct attacks on a civilian population. So maybe you could just be like,
Well, because like if you're in a hostile situation and then some little kid comes running out, and you pull your trigger because you're in an intense situation.
Okay.
well, war crimes aren't punished very well. Like people aren't held accountable super good. It's not a good situation. Don't go to war, kids.
Well, too bad.
Couldn't you use, I know this is a negative argument, but couldn't you say that your lethal autonomous weapons are a better alternative to nuclear weapons, just because they kill less people per, like, I mean, yes, you have less human
Per
influence
unit
to
of-
an extent, but also, if you want to look at the two uses of nuclear bombs in war, the loss of life of civilians alone.
I mean, if we even go to nuclear war, the whole world's just boned.
Yeah,
I would say that nuclear war is kind of non-unique because it's not happening now, and it's probably not going to happen even if we have lethal autonomous weapons, or even if we ban it. Like in either world, it seems very unlikely it's going to happen, and I am not entirely convinced that what we do in this topic is going to change that.
And
So-
in either of the your civilians are probably still going to get killed in nuclear weapons or.
No, civilians are definitely gonna get killed either way.
It just matter of how many.
So can you just go like, well, not that many.
It's an
civilians.
outweighing opportunity.
Yeah,
That's one of those arguments where it's like, yeah, technically you can, but it's like whenever you have to outweigh like racial discrimination, and you just feel awful, where you're just like, well, yeah, civilians are gonna get killed, but why should I care?
It doesn't happen to me.
I live in America. We don't fight wars on our soil.
Just in the ocean. That's why we have the
Yeah, no,
biggest
it's been a
city.
long
It's
time.
been a long time.
Would Civil War be the last one?
Technically-
Probably the Spanish-American
I mean,
War.
technically, Civil War wasn't an actual
Actually,
war.
it was World War II.
What do you mean Civil War was an
Japan didn't
actual
take over
war?
a
It's
I
country.
mean, civilians did get killed.
I mean, it didn't kill. However, under the United States law, it's not an actual war because Congress never declared war.
They still went to war.
Yeah,
It still went to war.
If they don't declare war, it's technically not a war.
Moving on to drones.
Then why is it called the Civil War?
Thank you.
We already talked about drones a little bit. I don't really feel like I have to put too much here. You could talk about advancing drone technology, but like my issue is that I don't really see what the difference is between having an autonomous drone and having one that is controlled by a human. Like they can pretty much do the same things.
The only difference is the human has the ability to make decisions, and the drone just follows programming.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of don't like this argument, but people have been talking about it, so put it on the board.
Autonomous tanks, baby.
Well,
That's scary.
Thomas, what do you do?
Oh,
I mean, I think it's an argument because like horrible mistakes are made with drones that are controlled by humans. And
So wouldn't that make it non-unique? Because it's literally like people are going to do bad things with drones whether or not they control it or whether or not it's autonomous.
No, not bad things on purpose. Like, oh, I thought that was a dog and it's a human, or I thought
it was
that
a little
was
girl.
this and it was a different building or whatever. So, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I think you can technology. It has its flaws and weaknesses, and
Yeah.
It's
humans we
hackable.
still like to believe have some another level of
That's fair.
critical thinking.
I can see that. I think that's getting a little. My complaint then would just be that's like very specific of an argument, which is why I personally would not run it. But I think that you are going to see that because I would agree with that general concept that it's like autonomous drones are going to make more mistakes. 'Cause that's kind of what we're talking about with like more civilian deaths and abuse. I just think that people getting hyper fixated on drones is like
Oh,
not.
my drone.
Well, but it's the closest thing to, you know what I mean? It's like the
That's fair.
closest technology. It's all we know. Like, it's the closest
Autonomous
technology to
tanks.
what they're talking
All
about.
right.
So.
Programming isn't perfect either.
What
Programming isn't perfect either.
do you mean like from human actors? That's
So
another
get
thing.
it.
We'll get to that in a second. Actually,
I
that'll be
have
on
a
the night.
message for you. We have to come over here and read it.
No, not right now.
Yeah, you have to.
Not right now.
Why?
Just
Because
read
I'm
that
trying
loud.
to do this.
Yeah.
Read it to the class.
Read the class.
Okay, so we're gonna try and. What time is it? I can't see the clock.
It is 4:25.
Oh no. Okay, we're gonna pick it up. Did you have a question, Nick?
No, actually, it's something to say about drones. We can move on to it.
I can't hear you. You're gonna have to speak up, bud.
You should just continue because we're running out of time.
Yeah, I had something about drones, but since we're running lower on time, just continue.
You sure, bud?
Yeah.
Alright.
I can rebut later.
Looking at expensive, we already kind of talked about this a lot, but it's just like
Pretty
Um,
self-explanatory.
yeah, lethal autonomous weapons can be very expensive, and it's going to be like a big spend on the government's part. So then they have less money to do things like, I don't know, like
Humanitarian aid.
I was gonna say fund the totally crippled Social Security program that is already in terrible shape.
Program that doesn't need it.
So
War
like
on drugs again.
money pull.
Use drones to kill people, use drones to kill drugs.
There we
This
go.
argument.
Gage, I was gonna say
There we go, that's
quiet down. We don't have time for this. Gage, you can add a lot to this because I know you talked about this in Hertz class, and I only have a very basic understanding. So if you want to take away military-industrial complex,
So
you
the
go
military-industrial complex is like how the military promotes themselves like in society. So like, you know how they send recruiters to the schools and they're like, oh, you should join the military, you should join the Navy, blah, blah, blah. That's the military-industrial complex. So with using autonomous drones, it's gonna be like, we're taking more boots off the ground, so you should support the military more. You should give us more money, you should give us more resources. So it's just gonna be building up that big stick policy where it's like, we need to be the best, we need to have the most for all states, not just like the United States. It's just going to be that sort of, you need to put a main focus on the military as opposed to putting a main focus on humanitarian aid and peace efforts. It's more just pushing for a violent actor to take place.
So would you say the impact there would be like more escalation?
Yes, definitely. If you, especially with them building up a military industrial complex, you would see an increase in escalation and it would, big bone.
I do like that argument.
It's pretty good. Talk to Hart about it. If you want like a lot of inside knowledge, Hart's been.
Yeah, Hart
researching that.
is big on that argument.
So it's a good one.
Yes. It's very
Hart
good.
likes it's a good one.
Okay, so the next one, we talked about this one already a little bit, but it's like these drones are decently expensive, and it's like some countries aren't going to be able to afford it. My issue with that is that like the argument is it's like they're not going to be able to like fight back in war, but it's like, and they can now?
Are they
like,
winning?
Like, even if we ban lethal autonomous weapons, if the United States decides that it's gonna go like destroy Somalia, it's gonna destroy Somalia. Like, there's nothing they can do to stop it. Like,
Which country is it that has the
Die for Israel.
completely what is it? They don't fight. They're neutral.
I mean, Switzerland was really famous for it
Okay, that's
during
what it
World
was.
War II and
Did
World
you know
War
that
I.
Switzerland's been building up their nuclear like
Arsenal.
Dang.
Yeah,
and they still don't attack anybody, and nobody attacks them because they're like, oh,
because they're just in the mountains. Like, they can't go attack them.
yeah.
Okay, so that one's pretty short. We'll get through that. Hey,
Ooh, I like this next one.
Yeah, I like this one too. So we already talked about it a little bit, but like it desensitizes people to war, and people stop thinking that war is really bad because they're like, it's just There's a meme I always see.
It's just robots.
There's a like it's a Doge meme, and he's like, oh god, this isn't like a video game. These are real people and families, which like is making fun of the military recruiters. But like that's legitimately true because people are just gonna paint this as like literally a video game, and it's like, haha, drones fighting. That's like movie. And it's like people are gonna stop thinking about the fact that people are dying. Like that's not good.
Death.
So it's like we should not be desensitizing people to war. We should make sure that people know that war is bad and we should not do it if we can avoid it.
I have that next one on my case.
Yeah. This is one that I am really interested in actually. Cybersecurity feels really strong if we can find some good evidence for it.
Yeah, because
I've got
what
some
the
good-
heck is it?
I've got some good cards for it.
It's literally just like people hack.
Okay, well
That's
that
it.
deals with lethal autonomous weapons.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
hack
Do you
one.
think it's gonna be bad if someone hacks into an autonomous weapon?
If they're using a
Yeah.
system
That's
that
our drone swarm, dude.
Hey,
If they're using a system.
Everyone talk at once, Jesus.
Okay.
Why not? Yeah, why not?
Oh yeah, yeah, Gage, you were the one who was talking, so you can go.
Kind of like what Elijah said with how programming is not perfect. If they're using a system that they're using right now, that means that all of the drones are connected to a central system, which means if someone hacks one of them, there's an easy way to break the firewall into the main system, and then all of our drones are gone.
That's not good.
Perfect. Woo.
So yeah, that's a big point for cybersecurity. I thought it was just gonna be like, hey, hack one and then go kill a bunch of people, but it's like no, hack all of them.
Well, if you can break into one of them, especially with like the program that they're talking about using on new like drones, it's going to be easy to break the firewall on the main program because these programs spur off of the main program. So you've already broken one. Who's to say you're not going to break the main control center?
Yeah.
And we haven't
Well,
fixed
yeah.
that problem. Why?
So the cybersecurity one, I do like it, but this also goes into how the drones are designed. Because, like, for instance, if the drone has all the equipment it needs inside of the brain of the drone, and it does not need commands whatsoever from home base, it could be impermeable to hacks, because if it can't connect to some central link or connect or talk back to the satellites, it can't be hacked. Like, you can't tell.
But then that just causes more problems.
Does that? It's a hardware thing. Like,
I would
most
find the
software
odds
can
of
do
that happening incredibly low. What technology exists, period, that doesn't connect to the Wi-Fi anymore?
Nuclear weapons.
Satellites.
A lot of nuclear weapon programs still do. Some of them are run on like old floppy disks, but did you say satellites?
Yeah.
Satellites definitely have connections, but
My nose is like gushing blood. I'll be back.
I Gage, you know what you're talking about anyway. Did you just throw away that mask?
Yes.
How is he gonna?
Because his nose was gushing blood.
But how he doesn't have an extra mask?
All right,
He'll live.
He'll just breathe through his.
Okay, he had his hand up first.
So like, with like, I don't know if this goes into cybersecurity or like miscalc or something, but I found evidence where they conducted research on like autonomous algorithms, and every time they ran this algorithm, it would change the results. There would be different algorithms splitting from that single algorithm, and come up with new like coding languages for itself, and new different types of encryptions. So I think that can go into cybersecurity or miscalc somewhere.
I mean, I'd have to look
They
into
use
that.
that on an autonomous.
I'd have to look into that, but I don't know. Nate, no, Nate.
Okay, so I mean, this is a kind of a attack against it, but it's a similar concept to what they do with mines. Is that you have to have someone watching. Well, in this case, you'd be watching the program, making sure and constantly enforcing it. But you can't just leave a minefield unsupervised, according to the military. Otherwise, someone could hypothetically move the mines. It's a similar situation. You have to have someone on constant watch, meaning they will be on a constant lookout for hacks and attacks. So, because it's the same thing. If they move all the mines in your minefield, you don't know where they are, and you blow up yourself.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, I don't think it's as. I think you could make a case that people wouldn't do that, but like for lethal autonomous weapons. But I could also see that you could. Josh.
Okay, so to kind of undermine what Nick said, if I get it that they still branch from a central point, but you still get into that central point and you have access to all of those separate branches. Like if you chop down a tree, all the branches connected to the tree will also fall. This isn't Minecraft, so still.
What I was saying.
I mean, if they have different encryption keys, then it's going to be a lot harder.
Like, that card specifically says like it was one
I should have one on
algorithm.
my
They
backpack.
started it, and then that algorithm they left it alone. It was an autonomous algorithm, and it went off and created new like coding languages for itself.
See,
Like,
but I just find that hard to believe as well because we don't have AI.
Yes.
We do have AI in the military.
Not actual AI. Like not artificial intelligence that can create new encryption.
We don't have it's artificial intelligence equivalent to a person, but we have artificial intelligence equivalent to something that's able to make a decision based on inputs.
Yes.
Like how do you
But it's not going to be able to like
like
go through and create like these complex ideas like encryption. Like
That's where you're sort of right, sort of
Wrong.
Because the way that they get AI to be that smart is that they have a program that somebody designs to train a program. So they have a program that is not necessarily as smart as the program they're trying to make. That gives a list of things, and it's given a couple million different. You know what neural networks and that kind of thing are.
I get what you're saying just in general.
Yeah.
Like I know the basic idea behind AI.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that like the technology itself, like there's different levels of AI, and we're not at the point where we can have like drones that I would be skeptical that right now we have AI that can like literally make itself unhackable, because even if it like we could, then why wouldn't we be doing that?
Okay, so if this goes back into what I'm saying. So the AIs wouldn't be necessarily unhackable. It would be only hackable at the programming stage of what I'm saying. So
I don't think it matters. I don't think we're gonna have that point. I think it's completely unfeasible that we're gonna have just like old technology being used for these.
Not
like,
old technology.
I get what you're saying, but I'm saying like it's not connected to anything. That just simply like
It would be
even
completely
if
useless for military
even
to
if
do.
some countries did that, if there's even one weak link that chooses not to do that, then we can hack into it, and then we can use drones for hacking. That's what people talked about with nuclear weapons as well, where they were like, most countries have really good cybersecurity, and it's like, okay, and what happens for the one country that doesn't? Because the United States like hacks into North Korea's missile systems all the time.
As far as I know, nuclear weapons they don't have networks. It is all hardwired so that
Floppy
you don't.
disk.
The United States hacks into North Korea's nuclear missile systems all the time.
That depends on where you get your information from. Because
I mean, this was
as trustable as the United States federal government is, I still wouldn't trust half the crap that they say.
I mean, it's
like-
missile failures. Like you can't.
Yeah. That kind of stuff. Yeah, but like on the military strength of any nation, there's no good way of knowing who's got what.
The best
Regardless, like even
software-
if, well, we're getting completely off topic at this point, but the like main point of this is that these the new technology that we produce is almost certainly going to be connected to the internet in some way, shape, or form, because that's simply how these things are going to function. Especially if we go back to things where Nate was talking about, where if we want to have any opportunity for us to see, like, I don't know, what the drone is doing, then we're gonna need that. Unless like your plan is to have like a camera mounted on the drone, and then the drone comes home and you take the film from it, like then we're gonna have to have some way that we can connect to it, which leads to cybersecurity threats.
You're still on cybersecurity?
Yes, Addison.
Could you like make an argument that's tied to like personal security? Like the more that we like.
Can I have a personal autonomous drone to protect my house?
Yes,
No, but like the more that you like develop these like lethal autonomous weapon systems, the more like they'll be used to surveillance everyone. You know?
Oh, you mean like a military state? Yeah, actually, I was talking to my original LD captain Will about that.
Will Henriksen.
And yeah, him and I talked about that a little bit. I think the negative arguments, it's really sad because I kind of agree with the affirmative side, but from a debate standpoint, I think the negative side is going to be stronger just because it has more debatable arguments, right?
Well, I mean, technically, LD, this all should be equally debatable because it's philosophy, but
We have 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So how does philosophy tie anything to like?
Because any
We're not,
action.
nah, we don't have time for this.
We're not
Elijah.
What about like jobs? It'll make new jobs and open new industries. Or was that already said in the military?
Federal jobs guaranteed.
So banning, like, are you
Not
sorry?
that- oh yeah. that
So
was-
are you saying that? Are you saying that like if we ban lethal autonomous weapons, we're going to lose a bunch of jobs?
Well, there's no jobs yet, so.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, this is affirmative argument saying that we should, but I think that might be on the negative. But if not, we'll talk about that because that's a good point. Any other last minute questions on the app? Cool. Wow. Good thing there's less of these, as there typically is. Yeah, that's not on here, so that's actually a good point. So we'll talk about that real quick. I don't feel like this is going to be a really hard concept for you guys to grasp, but it's like if we have lethal autonomous weapons, then we are going. Hold up, I'm trying to like. This is another negative argument, so I'm trying to like a resolution. So I'm trying to word what side this would go on, but I think it's the neg. If we have lethal autonomous weapons, then people aren't going to be working for the military as much anymore because we don't need soldiers, so we're going to lose jobs. So that would be arguing for not having it.
Yeah, that'd be F.
So that would be F, actually. Okay. God, I hate topics like this. Every single time I get confused.
Yeah, because if you lose jobs in the military, that only gives people more reasons to add more jobs outside of the military.
I like your less war crimes argument.
That also leads to the
That's, no, legitimately, that's like my favorite argument.
Rape.
Yes. Smart.
in that like same idea, wouldn't that also mean that like there'd be less funding going into the military since less soldiers would be going there? And the main reason why soldiers go there in the first place, well, not main reason, but some of them go like to pay for college.
Which I actually
That's
heard
what
was
I'm
BS.
doing.
It's the
I
same
actually
argument.
heard that was BS. So.
Well, most people don't go into the military for the sake of serving their country. Let's be honest with ourselves.
America!
Is Mr. Gale gonna
Look
come
at
in here?
Mr. Gale!
Mr.
Unless you're in the middle of a war, you typically don't go in to serve the country.
Hi, Mr. Gale.
Hey, what did I get on my essay?
You think he's graded your essay?
Same grade as last time.
Yeah, 75%.
When you're that bad, I just give you a 75.
Oh.
I think that sounds generous.
Yeah.
That's why I still haven't.
Mr.
graded
Gale,
it.
I'm
Bad
still-
enough, I don't even read the whole thing.
Mr. Gale, I'm still upset. You told Second Block that you almost stopped reading my essay when you read the word asinine. Why?
Oh no.
It's not a bad word.
I know that.
Like
What's wrong with the word
I'm
asinine?
being serious. Like I legitimately don't
It
understand.
doesn't
why.
belong in a formal essay.
Why not?
Probably not.
Because it means stupid.
Yeah, but it's like saying it in like a good way.
It's even more sophisticated.
It's
man.
making yourself sound smarter while saying the word idiotic.
You could just say less intelligent.
Too edgy.
Still.
I read online that it was
Also-
okay in a school environment.
Who said that?
It was like English Stack Exchange.
.org.
Yeah. .edu.
But you know what I was most mad about?
Well, it's because I didn't explain it. That's fine.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I'm legitimately
not my
just upset
opinion.
that you thought that
It's
asinine
not my
sounded good
opinion,
word.
so it's asinine.
That's kind of what I was saying.
Now we
That
have
is
the,
exactly
now
what
we
you
have
were
the
saying.
context and the full story.
No, I'm okay with him taking off points for that. He just told me I couldn't
didn't
use that
take
word.
Points for it, I
All right.
just said.
Can we keep talking about
Yeah, you
arguments?
did. You took off 2 points.
For that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, for not, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Quick,
Okay.
we got like 20
Alright,
minutes. We should keep. We should.
So I'm excited about these
So,
negative
anyway,
arguments.
Did we have anything else we want to say on jobs?
Huh.
Cool.
No.
National security. Less soldiers on the ground. People don't die.
Good job.
Yay!
Less room for error. So this one, like, kind of goes.
There's less
Human
room
error.
for error.
This one kind of goes with war crimes, like a little bit. But it's literally like soldiers aren't perfect. We could technically perfect drones at a certain point in history, or not history, the future, where it's like they can just do everything perfectly, and they're gonna be better than soldiers. So it's like, wow, less mistakes are made.
And plus, it's easier to turn back.
When
the
you say
drone than
less,
to-
well, I know I haven't gotten to this point yet, but less death for war, is that for us or them?
Less death in war in
Us.
general.
Us.
I mean,
Now,
on
that
both
makes sense
sides.
because
I mean,
of
yeah.
us.
And when you're saying us, this topic isn't talking about the United
When I
States.
when I say
I don't
us, I'm
mean the
referring
United
to
States.
like the away team, for lack of a better term.
Good job.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
When you do the resolution, are we like assuming that the lethal autonomous weapons are like fully developed?
No,
Okay, because I was reading this thingy and it was like,
because they're not yet. Yeah.
yeah, because it was like you can't distinguish, well, computers or whatever can't distinguish combatants from non-combatants. Whatever.
Yeah, so you could argue that tech will never get there, so it's just like these lethal autonomous weapons are just, they kill when they see, which is where they're currently at. So it's like, you know. Okay, so less death in war, literally that's just kind of that's very similar to national security. It's literally just like, wow, less people have to die because there's less people fighting, and also less civilian deaths, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Less war crimes. This is like my favorite argument because it's like, this is what we were talking about earlier. Soldiers do a lot of bad things sometimes. There's a lot of rape that happens. There's a disgusting amount that happens in like these
Genghis
countries.
Khan.
Well,
It's not
technically Genghis Khan did not commit war crimes.
because
Still, great.
because they
There was no war
The
crimes.
Geneva Conventions did not exist. But
My point isn't war crimes.
Percent of the Chinese population like related to Genghis Khan.
I mean,
There's like
100%,
like
100% of the white population is related to Charlemagne.
That's a problem.
Charlemagne.
But anyway, so it's like, yeah, well, if we don't have soldiers, then they can't go and do those bad things. That's it.
The robots will do it this time.
Yeah, there we go.
Wait, hold up.
We're gonna put the wrong boy.
It's that one.
This is how cyborgs
Okay, so I don't like this one because I really think it's like
Stupid.
not topical, but people aren't gonna follow the ban. I think LD inherently like implies that like the resolution happens and people adhere to it.
That's exactly what I'll do.
Well, I
They
think
should.
Well, I think the a way you could phrase this is that terrorist groups are not states, therefore they do not have to follow the ban and will use it. Therefore, it fails because there is still a armed force, and since it's not a state, it doesn't follow the resolution, that will still be able to use these autonomous
Right,
weapons.
terrorists don't adhere to the UN's policies. Who's gonna stop them?
That's true, but also that'd be a separate argument. Because terrorism is a good argument. It's like terrorists can get lethal autonomous weapons. I don't know how easy that'll be. Because it's like when we argued that with nuclear weapons, the easy thing there was once again they already exist. And also like making a nuclear bomb really isn't hard. You just have to like get some, because like it's not going to be as like perfected
You
as
gotta
like
get some uranium.
it's not as perfected as like a normal bomb, but it's like yeah, if you just get nuclear materials and then attach it to an explosion, that's a nuclear bomb.
There you go.
Wow.
That's called a dirty.
It is definitely a bomb. It can take out several city blocks.
You can take out several city blocks, but if you can actually split the
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not the best bomb ever, but it's like
It's
Yeah,
not the
you
best
end up
bomb
with
ever, but
dirty
like
bombs.
those blocks are
Yeah.
gone for a long
so.
time.
Anyway, so terrorism is a good argument, but I don't know how feasible it's going to be that terrorists can get it. So that's going to be your biggest issue with that argument. And as with this one, people are going to argue it. I don't think any of you should, but it's like countries just aren't going to adhere to it. Like if Russia can get lethal autonomous weapons, then they're going to do it, whether there's a ban or not. Russia probably isn't a great example. Like North Korea would be a better one. And then otherwise, we could talk about de-escalation, where it's like
so
actually.
what do we respond to that with?
So what I always say is, ought is defined as a moral obligation. We're not talking about in today's debate what we can actually do or what countries are going to follow. We're saying in a world where all lethal autonomous weapons were banned and people weren't able to have them, would it be better for society? And the answer is yes.
Man, I wasn't listening to any of that.
Well, that's because it wasn't your question. And lastly, oh, sorry, Nick.
So I actually had something I was going to play off of what Nate said with terrorists getting it. I found evidence that there was a attack with actual autonomous weapons from like I think it was a year ago on a Russian military base from a terrorist organization.
Oh, looks like terrorists beat us to the punch.
I find that hard to believe once again.
Well,
Where did you get this evidence from?
let me find it.
FoxNews.com.
It didn't come from Fox News. It actually came from a non-news source.
Is it .org or .edu? Because if so, I don't care.
If so, you don't care?
Well, if it's from like a
You said .org or .edu.
yeah, then I don't care.
Why?
Well, you would rather a .com?
Commercial exploitation.
No.
Oh, yes,
I would prefer a
bad
scholarly
money,
article.
Baby.
And .edu would it be a scholarly article?
.edu is not going to give you what you want.
Yeah, it's actually from October 2020. That's when that came from.
From what?
Okay,
Yeah,
but
that's
who is it from? And I would be curious as to the accuracy of their
Foreign
definition
Policy
of.
Insider.
Sorry?
Foreign Policy Insider.
I would be curious as to their definition of autonomous. That's where I bet
I
the
read that same article.
Russia did say that they were.
I read that same article.
They did say that they were completely autonomously controlled, and so did the terrorist
Controlled.
organization.
They weren't.
They were. Like they were autonomously.
Wait, autonomously controlled, meaning, do you mean like
They were
remotely?
programmed to do what they would do. There's non-button press, and they did what they were supposed to do. There was
Yeah,
no-
that's able to be done. with
I'm
current
still,
technology.
I'm very
And they
skeptical.
built
I will
them
look
out
into
I'll
it.
send you the
They
link to
built
the.
these drones out of plywood, duct tape, and lawnmower blades, and they dropped bombs on Russian military bases.
That's scary.
That's not autonomous, dude. Autonomous has to be able to actively seek out like people and kill them.
Well, no.
Like if
target
if
and
I
engage.
just like throw a bomb at someone and I'm like it'll go off eventually and I didn't make it go off, like that's not autonomous.
Well, no, I mean that.
Yeah, because you threw the bomb. It makes sense.
I mean, again.
So then we should add to our definition of autonomous, the autonomous part being the robot itself is capable of making decisions, because what Nick is describing is a robot that has some propellers so it can fly, and it's been programmed a path, so it's going to go from base A all the way to base B, then it's going to release its hat, it's going to drop its weird crazy lawnmower bombs, and it's going to go back.
Because that's that's not autonomous, because it's like, so what's the difference between me controlling a drone while it actively goes out to do this task that I'm telling it to do, and me telling a drone to go do a task before it goes and does it, and it still does it? Like, that's still not autonomous. Like, it still required human interaction. It required me to directly say what it is. But if I just created a drone and I was like, go kill, and it was like, okay, and then it was just able to go and find people and kill them, like, that would be autonomous.
Well,
What is
Like
up
this,
with this?
and that I don't like that. I don't like the way you compared that because in that case you still have to tell them to go kill. I think an autonomous weapon is able to perform the task without human interaction because our modern drones still require the human to essentially pull the trigger and for a better lack of term.
Yeah, I
but
essentially
there's a
pulled the
difference between-
trigger. I just pulled it before I set the drone out.
Yeah,
There's
but
a difference between
well, but-
pulling the trigger and the
I think
giving the
I
trigger
think,
to
I think
someone else.
autonomous are able to play out the orders without a human. After the human gets the orders, they're able to play out the orders without human interaction afterwards. That's why mines are still, at least the definition I'm going to go with, are still going to be
I mean, legitimately, then, do you think that a normal bomb is autonomous?
A normal
If
bomb,
I
you
just,
still have to throw it. However, a mine.
what if I set a bomb
mine-
here? What if I set a bomb here right now on a timer? Is that bomb now autonomous?
No.
That's
You
different than a
still
mine.
Put it
No, it's the same
How?
thing. The only difference
Because
is
the
that was on
mine
timer
does
and
the mine seeks out the.
So now we're going for seeking out.
I mean, under your definition, the mine technically does target someone, whoever steps.
I'm not
on
arguing
it.
against landmines anymore. I'm arguing against this drone nonsense.
I mean, again, if you program it to target and seek out, it is still targeting and seeking out.
which would make it
But it's
autonomous.
not seeking out. It's literally just going to this location, drop. Because if there's a person there or not, it's still going to travel the distance that it was told to travel. It's still going to drop the bomb at its specified elevation.
Okay.
But that's
So
still
are
that's
you,
still a
so are
targeting
you
system.
saying that autonomous weapons can just be launched to, doesn't matter where, just to destroy anything, no matter
I mean, obviously,
what it
there's
is?
going to probably be ways in order to control them, but the difference would be it's like, okay, so let's say that I send this drone to. I almost used the school as an example just because I was thinking that's very. And so let's say I send it to let's say I send it to the Korean border,
Totally
right? And I'm like, all right, you're gonna patrol the Korean border, and whenever you see people move, you kill them. That's different.
Well, I think
It's not me just saying, all right, now you're gonna be on the Korean border, and you're just gonna let out a constant stream of gunfire that'll certainly hit anyone.
I'm thinking because an autonomous weapon would be if we're going to go back to the drone example, a drone that you tell to, for example, if we're going to go back to Middle East fighting ISIS, tell to target a specific ISIS base and blow that up without a human being when it gets to the base telling it to blow it up. It's still automatic programming. The programming is still autonomous. It's designed to seek out once it gets to a certain location.
I guess I'm just gonna have to define in my rounds autonomous as decision making, because that's what autonomous technically means. And I'm gonna be like, it's not making decisions, and then I'll end it.
I have something to say.
Yes.
So, if I aim a gun and pull the trigger, I'm effectively targeting a place with my eyes.
And then ahead of time setting the gun to kill.
No, I'm targeting something with my eyes and then pulling the trigger. That's the same thing as these drones that we're talking about. You're just targeting it and pulling the trigger, but the trigger's being pulled later. They're not autonomous because you're setting the sight. It's not making its own decision. It's not going to its own sight and shooting.
It's like if you shoot the drone where to go and what to do. You're not. I mean, yes, it's a little simpler than having somebody actually do it, but you're telling the drone where to go and when to do it, and that's your significant human interaction.
Yeah, exactly. That's the human control.
telling it where to go. If the drone decided, oh, it's 3 o'clock on a Monday, I'm gonna go bomb the White House. I mean,
That would not be
autonomous.
That's autonomous.
That's autonomous.
Because I know obviously we're kind of making fun of it, but legitimately, what about a gun connected to a timer?
No.
That's
That would
not,
be the same thing as those drones.
but that's
Not
different though.
autonomous.
I mean,
It's the-
no,
you're
no,
setting
it's-
a timer.
it's-
Okay.
How is it different?
Okay, it's different because you are setting a timer to make so. you're
Okay,
still-
I also set the drone to travel to this location at a specified time to drop a bomb.
That's the same thing.
Okay, but it's still you're controlling that timer to let it go. No?
I'm also controlling the
Yeah.
drone.
Alright, let's get rid of
Okay.
it. We're already done
Yeah,
de-escalation.
you're right. That would.
Yeah, so wait, lastly, let's just hit de-escalation. De-escalation, hey, just hit de-escalation really quick. So the basic argument here is that it's de-escalation, it's going to allow things to slow down really quick, because if there's less actual casualties, people are going to be more willing to actually negotiate, because it's once we have if someone kills an American in a war, then guess what? America is never going to negotiate. We are going to fight until we believe that we have won.
Pearl Harbor.
Pretty much. But it's if all we did was lost a drone, it's I mean, look at all those aircrafts that get shot down, ones that don't actually have people in it. They don't do anything.
On the other side of that coin, that's a significant loss of money. money, because each of those drones was a couple $1 million a piece.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not, but I think it's still more likely to de-escalate. But also, we have the escalation argument on the affirmative side, so it's like it can be argued either way. All right. Hey, wait, everyone, shut up for a minute so that way I can close off this video. Okay, so I'm gonna upload this for you guys, and this is an hour long, so I'm sorry, but please like come talk to me if you have questions. Okay, bye.